In three, two, one.
Hi, everyone. This is real estate coach Craig Proctor, and welcome to the Craig Proctor Real Estate Show. Today, my special guest is and friend, long-term member is Tony Johal from Remax in Kitchener-Waterloo. Tony, welcome to the Craig Proctor Show.
Love being here. Thank you for having me.
I said friend because you've been around for such a long time. So many qualities. I love in you, Tony. Today, we're going to talk about how you are the go-to agent in your area. We were talking before we got started about the fact that a lot of people are on social media talking about how becoming successful in real estate is easy. And let's be honest, you put in the work, but you had a great system to follow. And there are agents that do put in the work and never see the kind of success that you've had. So let's get right into where you began on this journey. And then we'll fast forward to what it looks like now and just break down your advice, what you would advise realtors that want to emulate, that you want to be successful. Everyone, you're hearing directly from somebody that makes millions of dollars actually selling real estate. And we're going to get into this journey of how it all began and what it looks like today. And then going forward, what are your ambitions? So Tony, thanks for being on the Craig Proctor Show today.
My pleasure. You know what? Let me start first of all with the latter part of your question, which is the temptation of the getting rich quick scheme. The one thing that I'll say about marketers these days on social media is their marketing has never been better. They have never done a better job ever than making it sound so easy to just enroll in a simple course. And before you know it, you've made millions of dollars, and they've got, testimonials, whether they're legitimate or not is a different question. So first of all, I have to tell everybody, I come across these same ads all the time too. What I'm going to tell you is this, at least from my experience, don't fall for those traps. Building a business takes time, and it's about the journey and who you become as you build your business. It's so important to understand every facet of your business, because later on, when your business is making, millions of dollars a year, you want to be able to still hold your staff to a high standard, and you can only ever hold them to a high standard if you've ever walked the walk. And so when your inside salespeople are telling you, hey, I can't get past 30 dials a day, and all of a sudden you think back to when you did it, when you had less technology, you're like, I was hitting 60, 70, 80 dials a day. So you're able to then have a degree of quality control based on your own experience. And I find that building a business is not just about reaching the end goal, but it's about understanding every single element of it so you can make enhancements and improve and figure out exactly what your business needs at any given time. So building a business can be fun, and it's also very, very educational.
I think it has to. I think it kind of has to be fun to do it as intensely as you've done it, but you've got borders around your business too, so you can have freedom, which we'll get into. But
Yeah.
you're passionate about this, right? Before we got started, you talked about the mindset to be driven and continually really competing against yourself and wanting to make it bigger and better.
For sure. I think in order for you to have a quantum leap business, you have to have a quantum leap mindset. And so many people get started in their business and they have tremendous success up front. And then what they're doing is they're coasting, they're maintaining, but they're under the belief from the past that they're still making quantum leaps in their business. And I think they have to look at their business from a scrutinizing perspective and ask yourself, are you still making the jumps that you did before? Now, if you're making a jump from 100,000 to 500,000, that is a tremendous jump. It's very, very difficult to 5x your business year over year. But to go from 100 to 500,000 is quite easy. But to go from a million to 5 million, which is still the same mathematics, but it's obviously requires a different degree of I guess maybe mindset, or even it may not even be possible. You have to kind of build your way up there. So the one thing that I'll tell everybody is this: develop a quantum leap mindset. Always ask yourself, am I up because the market is up, or am I truly up and the market stands where it is? Too many people I find came out of, like, or even came out of COVID, or just, during the pandemic, they're like, oh my God, my business is up 30%. Well, why? Obviously, the market's up 30%. The average house is no longer 700,000. The average house is $1 million. It's a no-brainer that your fees are going to go up. But what happens now when the market kind of simmers back down? Is your business down 30%? Well, then that was an artificial jump in the first place. These are the things that we have to look at as business owners, I find.
Let's go back to the very beginning. Let's go back to Tony Joe Hall, maybe the day you first met me. What was your mindset? What were you thinking at that point when we first met, you first started working with us?
Yeah, I've shared this on stage a number of times. So I mean, it was just by happenstance. I was sitting in the platinum room. So here's what happened. My wife and I, my wife is also a team leader in our business. She runs our business, and she really, there's no way we can have this business without her. And for those that are going to be in Toronto, she's going to be there too. You'll get to meet her. She really is the brains. So she and I were in Toronto in 2014, and I think Craig and Todd had a half day slash an introduction to what's going to be coming over the next few days at the Hilton Hotel. So I attended that event with my wife. She was about 6 months pregnant at the time with my daughter Scarlett, and so at the end of that session, we just felt really good about it. We're like, this is what we really need in our business. Now, what ended up happening was, I think Todd asked us at the end, did you want to stay for the 2.5 day event? And I really wanted to, and my wife, she really wanted to, but we were just kind of starting out kind of small. She had obligations back in Kitchener, so plus she was 6 months pregnant at the time, so she was uncomfortable. It's hard for her to sit down for hours and hours a day. So I decided, we decided together that I was going to stay. So I drove her back to Kitchener, grabbed my suitcase, packed some stuff up, came back to Toronto the same day. And so I stayed at the Hilton, and it was a great experience. I attended the conference the next day, and I, sat in the room, and I just heard person after person going up there talking about their experience. At the time, I was making not just only about their experience, but what's working in their business. So like the conference had a lot of meat behind it as well. It wasn't just people glamorizing how good their business is. There was a lot of stuff. I had pages and pages of notes. And so, I remember at the time, I was really, really struggling to make over 100,000 a year. I think I was one of my best years. I might have done 92,000.
And how were you getting your business back then when you were making 100,000?
It was honestly just open houses, past clients, because I'd been in the business. I've been in the business since 2006. So I did have some people coming back, but when you only do a few transactions a year, you really can't rely on past clients, really kind of building your business. But open houses, past clients, and some referrals, just kind of like the same way that most agents do. And
But there's something different here, Tony, because a lot of agents, the majority of agents, would be happy making $100,000 a year. They would think, well, that's pretty good. But there was something different about you.
Crazy was I was looking at people. I was like, man, this guy's so stupid. How the hell is he making $250 a year? Like it blew my mind.
So you started looking around at people that were doing better, and you had this sense of dissatisfaction.
Yeah, I was like, okay, you know what? I may not be the brightest guy in the room, but I'm definitely smarter than that dude down the hallway. Like, how is he making like $500,000 a year? Like,
okay, good point.
And so, I had this kind of inner anger or chip on my shoulder, whatever it was. And so I knew it was possible to do these things. And so making 100,000 a year for me was a good year. And most of the times I'd float around 60, 70, 80. But as I sat in that room in Toronto, I really, really felt small. And, there's times in your life where you feel small and it can defeat you. But I felt small, but I felt energized. I was like, this is amazing. This really has opened
Mhm.
my eyes to what is possible. And, later on learned I was sitting in the wrong room. I should have been in the coaching room. I was sitting in platinum. That's why I call it happenstance. And so that takes me back to the journey when
Yeah,
you and I,
you were supposed to be in a room with people that are making $100,000 a year, but
yeah,
you got into our platinum room where they're making high, six and seven figures.
yeah.
What now was it? I guess I know the answer. It's probably you're going to answer both. I was going to ask, was it what they were talking about, like their systematic way of doing things that really got your juices flowing, or was it just the fact that was the amount of volume of real estate they were selling?
For me, it was a volume. It was, the content they had was incredible, but much of the content they had was beyond my capability of being able to afford it or even understand what they're talking about. I was like, what is this that they're talking about?
That's an important point because a lot of agents would look at something they don't understand and they go down the road, and you've seen this, Tony, they go down the road of why they can't do that, or the rules in their area or their marketplace is different. But you almost have that attitude of, yeah, I don't really understand what they're talking about or how to do it, but I sure want to learn how. I want to figure it out.
100%. I mean, I was so excited to be there. For me, staying in that hotel, which I think was 250 a night or something like that, that was a large financial commitment for me to be able to spend, 3 nights there. It was a large amount of money for us at the time. So it was something my wife and I both believed in. So I thought to myself, I'm like, hey, she's got faith in me. I can't let her
I guess she
down.
does. I'm thinking she's 6 months pregnant. You've just dropped her off at home, and she
Yeah,
might be thinking, "Oh, Tony's going to go to this real estate convention party for 3 days." So, but you were there to work.
I was. And the best thing I ever did was have her come with me to the
Yeah.
conference because then I didn't have to sell it to her. She sat there and she just absorbed the same information that I did.
Now, was she working with you at that point?
She was,
She
yeah.
was. Okay.
She was doing the deals, the trades, and the payroll, and at the time we had an independent brokerage.
We could do an entirely separate session
Yeah,
on how to work at a high level with your spouse and not kill each other, right?
and you know what?
'Cause-
I've learned from you guys, you and
yeah.
Catherine. It's I've been fortunate enough to get to know you guys over the years, and one of the things I'm really kind of thankful for is understanding your dynamic as husband and wife, and then we
Mhm.
try to incorporate back into our business. And you guys, you've got a very passive personality, and I do too. You and I are very kind of difficult to frustrate. We seem to figure out problems, and I think our significant others, they bring this type of energy that just let's get shit done type of thing. And you need that. And so I've learned a lot from you guys. There's no question. But sitting in that room, it was definitely the volume because I used to think making $20,000, $30,000 was a significant jump. Selling an extra 2 or 3 homes a year was a big deal. But I'm sitting up there thinking, okay, these people are making more on a monthly basis than I'm making annually. And I was like, this is ridiculous. I was like, how can this be? And some of them were working in like not small markets, cheap markets. I was like, how is this person working in a $200,000 market, $300,000 market, and they're making this type of revenue? This is crazy. So immediately my mind was just blown. It expanded. I was in the right room, and I thought to myself, okay, I'm in the right place to learn how to get there. Imagine what I can do once I kind of get to where I need to. So it was really just a
Yeah, that association is really, really important. We've attracted great agents from all over Canada, the United States that do huge numbers, they do great things, and they're really good shares. So all of a sudden now you've got a different outlook on what is possible,
for sure,
and there's a plan to get you there. Okay,
100%. And
we're
so,
laying out this. Okay, this is what they did, but
yeah,
everyone in that room was following the exact same system for lead generation, conversion, presentations, recruiting, hiring, everybody's following the exact same system. So, what happens after that conference? You're energized. You realize, hey, $100,000. I'm no longer satisfied with that. I believe I can do something much bigger, which I think is the first step to greatness, is actually believing you can do it.
For sure.
And so, we lay out the proof, person after person, which obviously is exactly why we have those superstar panels at the conference. And you mentioned Toronto a few times. Tony's going to be speaking at my event in Toronto. It's a full day event for members on September 26th. That's Thursday, September 26th in Toronto. And there are going to be people attending that event, Tony, where they're going to be you, right? 10, 15 years ago, and they're going to be listening to you, and they're going to have that same epiphany of like, oh my God, this look what is possible here. So I want to thank you for always sharing and giving back like what you're doing here today.
You know what? I love being in that room, and if people get epiphanies, and if I'm in that room when they have that, it's a very satisfying feeling for me too. So, because I was
Yep.
that person, I sat in the room and I had multiple epiphanies, and it was just I think the biggest thing was I walked out of that conference and I said to myself, okay, I've got to take it one step at a time. I did that for two reasons. One, I didn't have the money to do everything. And number two was I knew right away that I very quickly could become overwhelmed by everything. And when I heard panelists say that they've only really executed maybe 10-15% of the entire what's available to them, and they're still making millions of dollars, I'm like, okay, I mean, that's pretty crazy. I mean, how can you be making all that money and you're not using more than 20% of everything that's available to you? So immediately I kind of took it in small bites, and I was very patient building my business. And a lot of that, like I said, I had to do with I was just financially in a position where I just couldn't invest heavily into the business. So I took it slow, and it just snowballed from there.
You really come from a nice place of here's what I did, and anybody that follows this can do what I did. Where a lot of people, when they become successful, get high on their horse and claim that this is something they did because they have superpowers. And there is a lot of BS on social media right now about how so and so, this person or that person, is going to overnight turn you into a millionaire, and it's not that much work, and they've got the secret formula. You did the work, okay, but you ended up being successful. A lot of people don't do the work and are surprised when they're not successful. Some people do the work and they don't do the right work, and they end up working way harder than you, and they're in the exact same boat 20 years from now. When you got back from that conference, what were the key things that you on this menu of this all you can eat buffet? You mentioned a lot of these successful members making millions of dollars a year were only implementing 10 or 20% of the Craig Proctor system. How did you decide, of all the things to do, what you were going to go back and attack first?
I had a good meeting with Success website. And basically I said to them, I said, here's the issue. I need more leads. I need opportunities for me to be able to follow up. I can deliver the universal callback script, but I need people to say it to. And so, we worked on that, and we got started on a pretty solid Google campaign. Facebook and certainly Instagram, they were not as available in terms of lead generation back in 2014. So I basically built my the base of my business on internet lead generation through Success website when they were running your ads. And the biggest thing was I would speak to Christy probably once every couple of weeks about how the ads were performing. And there's certain things that we have to investigate. Have they put Kitchener, Ontario, or have they put Kitchener in BC? Because I learned later there's a Kitchener in BC somewhere. Have they got the prices right? I mean, if you're offering a hot list of homes for homes under $1 million, well, guess what? Kitchener at the time, the average price was only like 400,000. it's studying the marketing because, Success website are in Toronto and Kitchener's still a ways away from Toronto. You have to still be, like Craig, you always say, you have to delegate effectively versus abdicating. And so I would review all the ads and make sure that, what was being offered online was actually in line with a good deal.
Okay, that's a really huge point. Did everyone catch what Tony just said? So many realtors abdicate their marketing to whoever. Okay, they've got a lead generation company. They've got somebody else that they say, oh, that person is in charge of our marketing. And Tony, you've never done that. You've always been involved in working with that company on your marketing. So you delegate. They're doing the work, but you're guiding it. You're overseeing it. And when I interview a lot of agents that are struggling, they're like, well, I buy my leads from here or there or whatever, and they're not involved in all. And in fact, a lot of times they don't really know what's going on behind the curtain. They just know they get a big invoice every month, and they'll complain, the leads are no good. Well, if you're not involved in your marketing, that is like your number one rainmaker activity is you need to be in charge of your marketing. You can delegate it, but you can't abdicate it. And it's the same thing with follow-up. I imagine in the early days, you were the one following up with all the leads.
100%. And, I would spend a minimum of 2 hours a day working on following up with the leads. I had a session with my own sales team probably about 2 months ago. And I said to them, I said, in my first year working with you, Craig, I went from $100,000 to 515,000. Now I was barely making 100 and I went to 515.
That's amazing.
And I didn't look at that as being amazing. I didn't look at that as being, as big as what it was. Now, when I look back, I'm like, holy crap, that was a pretty good jump. But at the time, I was just so focused on building the business that I was counting the money. I needed it. But at the same time, I was more excited about building the business than the money coming in, which is kind of, a weird thing.
I think so many successful, I'm not going to say all, so many successful people are just in love with the game.
Yeah.
And the money is the measuring stick. But this explains my longevity and your success and longevity is we love the game,
For
right?
sure.
So, the $500,000 wasn't like, that was the side effect, right? That was the outcome of playing the game better. But would you say you're a competitive guy?
I am, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I'm not that guy that's going to go run through a wall type of thing.
Right.
I've got this kind of inner drive that's just
Mhm.
like, hey, I'm capable of more. That was the whole
Yeah.
reason why I got pissed off when people down the hallway were making 250, and I was like, I can barely break 100. I grew up playing sports, and that's one of the things that obviously led me to being to finding a coach, is because I don't know it all. And look, if I'm going to learn, I'm going to learn from somebody that's walked the walk, not just talk the talk. And there's so many people out there that talk the talk, and they're great at talking. But the thing is, they're not great at walking, or they have a very short burst in their industry, and that seems to be their substance to being able to come back and share. Nah, you know what? I literally watched you during the Remax parties of the early days in Remax Canada. I literally watched you walk the runway with your team, collecting number one in the world awards. I was like, shit, man, this, like, I got to get there. And so, that's what led me to you. You're not just a sayer, you're a doer.
When you started getting all of these listing appointments, how long did it take you to really drill down on the listing presentation? Because when we start off, it's like, well, I sort of have a listing presentation, but really, I remember my early days, if you had a videoed, if I did 3 presentations the same day, each one would be a little bit different. But as I started to play around with it and I started to test different words that came out of my mouth. I mean, I would pay careful attention to the facial expressions of the sellers. And it was just like A/B testing. every day. And so when I started getting 4 or 5 listing appointments a day, I had enough repetition where, it's like if you play golf once a year and you don't do very well, you're never going to get better. But
Mhm.
I had enough repetition in these listing presentations that I started putting the right things together. And I was like, well, there's like if I say certain things, and then there's a best order to say these things in, I'm starting to get better results. And then I imagine you went through that as well, where you've got 5, 6, 7 listing appointments over a couple of days, and you got that kind of repetition. So you become really, really good at it. And it's a pretty cool feeling from going out on a listing appointment where you have this uncertainty, this inner voice of like, I probably won't get it, right? Why would they list with me? To, you know what? I think I'm unstoppable.
Yeah,
I went from I can't believe anyone would list their house with me to I can't believe anybody wouldn't list their house with me.
for sure.
And not in an arrogant way. I just really believed in it. I remember having sellers stop me halfway through the presentation and say, "We're good. It's so obvious. You're so passionate about. You believe in what you do so much. Yeah, we're ready to list." And you became that guy in Kitchener. You just and you're personable too, because that's a big part of it. You talked about your personality. I would say your personality is the type of you're a good listener. You listen to other people's points of view. So people like it's one thing to have a great presentation, but people don't like you. You could have the best track record and the best benefit presentation, and they still don't work with you. I think your personality and your outward, caring about people is really helped along with the presentation. So you've got this special personality, um, and you've got this inner aggressive drive, but you come off, very, very much relatable to just a wide group of people.
A lot of it has to do with the marketing that we put out there. A lot of the people who are in Kitchener, Waterloo, Cambridge, they've grown up with our marketing, whether it's the billboards, whether it's radio ads, whether it's television, whether it's postcards at times. They've grown up with us. So when I show up to a listing appointment, there's two things. Number one, they're surprised I show up, and they thought maybe it was going to be a team member. Um, and number two is,
That's always so cool the first time you hear that, isn't it? It's
oh,
like, oh my God, Tony Johals. Oh, you're oh, I can't believe that you yourself came to my house.
it's definitely a unique feeling. There's no question. We get Instagram videos where parents are sending their kids singing the song and stuff like that, and or taking a selfie by the billboard and stuff like that. It's a very cool feeling. So
You,
when you
you've
walk
really
in,
burnt you've really burned your radio commercial, that song. I mean, I could sing it, Tony Johal. I mean,
yeah,
uh, well, I
it's
mean, our topic today is how to dominate your market, and we haven't got into that yet because I want everyone to get to know Tony and hear the backstory. But you have literally dominated your market where everybody that wants to buy or sell, if they're not calling you, they're at least thinking about calling you.
the funny thing is I'm located on a street with in my building where there's other real estate companies and stuff like that. More people know our team than some of these real estate companies out there. It's a pretty funny feeling.
Well, they
Um,
they probably think you own the Remax franchise in Kitchener-Waterloo. I used to get that all the time.
yeah,
I would have calls into the office where people would talk to Cindy, my call coordinator, and they say we're out of feature sheets, and Cindy'd say your name, your address. Well, I'm sorry, we don't have that listed, and it would be some totally different Remax agent, and they're like, well, I mean, Craig owns the company, right? So that's why we're calling you. um,
it's a cool feeling.
Talk about some of the marketing that you
Yeah,
do right now, because there's a lot of it. And by the way, in Toronto on September 26th, this is Tony's talk. The topic is he's going to be sharing in detail and actually showing, which we're not going to do today, but he's going to be
yeah.
actually showing you the billboards, the radio commercials, TV, the direct mail, everything he does. So if you are living in Kitchener-Waterloo and you are not blind or deaf. You definitely know who Tony Johal is. He's everywhere. And you must have a hard time because I know you're trying to you're trying to track that information. When somebody lists their home with you, you and your team are digging hard of, okay, why did you call Tony?
For
And
sure.
what
And
kind of
it's
things do you hear?
no, for sure. And my guys have just they're really really good at now getting that information because when people call in, they say, "Well, we see them everywhere." Or like they know how to dig a bit deeper. Or the best one is, "Oh, we Googled him." Okay, well, what brought you to Google? Is there a
Right.
piece of marketing that took you online to think about us? And then too many people would make the mistake and say that's a Google lead. It's not. Like you have to look to see what brought them to Google in the first place. These are kind of some of the things I'm going to talk about. The other thing that I really want to talk about in Toronto is this. I want people to understand the journey that it gets from when you're starting branded marketing, what you need to kind of like keep an eye out on, what you need to have a certain expectation. And I want to get into that. I've kind of called it the journey of branded marketing because too many people look at the kind of the finished product and they don't see the tires getting put on. They don't see the glass being installed. You have to understand it's a progressive journey to get there.
Right. I don't want anyone watching this thinking, well, okay, here's a guy that makes $3 million a year, sells hundreds and hundreds of houses. What Tony does, I can't do. Well, that might be true right now, but understand Tony wasn't doing
Well,
this
no,
in the
I'll walk
beginning.
you through step by step
It's a
exactly
build.
what we did to get there, step by step.
I just want to go back to a point you just made about I think everyone watching understands the importance of tracking your marketing, right? We want to make sure, some of the messages that you run, some of the Craig Proctor messages you run, and some of the places where you run those ads are going to work better than others. So Tony and all my superstars, we're always working hard to find out, okay, why did this person really call us? And today, the normal thing is people say, well, I either saw you everywhere, which is nice but not helpful, or I Googled you. So it could be that Tony sent out a direct mail piece, and the prospect today just, oh, here's a direct mail piece. I'm going to Google Tony Johal, right? It could be a radio commercial, right? Where oh, I heard your radio commercial, but they Google Tony. So it appears, okay, if you don't dig deeper, it's like, wow, this Google thing's really work. Everyone's coming from Google.
Yeah,
But understand what Tony just said so important. How they get to Googling you is what we want to determine. So we'll go through some of those questions. That'll be a very good thing to talk about in Toronto, Tony, is the tracking and the testing and how you ask the deeper questions to try to get to the truth of, okay, you Googled this, but how did you get there? What marketing did we do that caused that so you can turn up and down the volume?
yeah,
And you and I were talking a couple weeks ago about your radio commercials, and that's a perfect example of you started doing radio, it wasn't working as well as you hoped, and then we played around with the script,
yeah.
and it didn't cost any more money. We just made something that you were perhaps ready to give up on. We made it better, and now it's one of your key marketing pillars.
And I was ready to give up on it. It's I was already calling you to say, hey, you know what can I switch this with? I sent you an email saying I've spent X amount of dollars on radio and I've made nothing. I'm ready to give it up. Do you suggest I put the money into direct mail? And your response kind of surprised me. You said, because you were always known as a big direct mail guy. So I was like, yeah, he's gonna support this. But your response was, let's send me a copy of your ad before we look at anything else. And I said, okay, fine, I'll send it to you. But at that point, I'd already mentally checked out of radio. I was like, this isn't working. People don't listen to radio anymore. And Spotify was out, Sirius and stuff like that. So I was like, people aren't listening to radio. I'd given myself so many excuses why something wasn't working. And so I sent you the script, you played around with it, and you literally sent it back to me like within an hour. And you said, try this one.
I don't even think, I don't remember how
Yeah.
much we changed on that radio script, but I don't think it was a lot. If I recall, I believe you had all this great stuff towards the end of the commercial. I think we just flip-flopped it.
And there was a few things for sure. The USP wasn't clear. There was no call to action that was done correctly. There was a few things, but as soon as I made those switches, those changes, those edits, all of a sudden within a week or so, it's like we're getting calls on it. The first time I got a call on it, I said it's a fluke. You know, it's and then all of a sudden then another call comes. Then all of a sudden it's just like boom. It's like, okay, something's working here really well. And before I knew it, I ended up on 4 different stations when I was ready to give up the only station that I was running. And it ended up really kind of catapulting us to all of the rest of the things, TV, billboards, you know, buses, direct mail.
Hey,
Um,
that reminds me, you know that TV show Mythbusters?
yes,
Okay, so we're going to do a myth buster right now. We're going to bust a myth.
yeah,
A lot of real estate agents are told, well, you just got to stick with a program. It's about you know, just sticking with something and being consistent. And had you kept running that original radio commercial, it wouldn't have mattered how long you hung with it, because people are like, well, you know, you just got to stick with it. You got to hang. You got to give it some time. Usually, people that teach marketing that doesn't work will tell you that type of thing.
sure.
I'll tell you once. Okay, my son Brandon, when he started with me, he's like, Dad, you've got to get somebody to help you with how you show up on Google. And there's this company, and we're going to hire them. And he was all excited about this. And I remember the first thing they said to me. They said, well, Craig, first of all, what we do is very expensive. Number two, it's going to take a long time to see the results. And whenever I hear somebody say, okay, it's going to be expensive, but you won't actually see the results for a long time. Well, we stuck with that probably about 6 months. And you know what? He was right. It
Yeah,
was expensive, but we never did see results from that. And I came to the realization, well, I could just run paid, you know, Google ads for a lot less hassle and money than what I'm paying these guys. And that's what we did. But um, direct response marketing, by virtue of its name, means that when you run it, you should be getting a return on investment. So for
absolutely.
anyone here that's being told anything different about, oh, you got to be patient with your marketing, you've got to be consistent. Yeah, consistently getting nowhere with everybody is very bad advice.
Yeah, for sure. I
Uh,
met someone at one of the conferences, and he was having an issue with his radio commercial. And he said, Tony, it's not working, it's not working. I explained what I just shared here right now on the podcast, and he was just fighting me on it. He said nobody, he was so checked out of it. And he said, look, it's not working, it's not working, it's terrible, nobody listens to it, everybody streams now. I said, okay, so you're saying nobody hears it? And he said, correct. I said, okay, do me a favor. Next week, run a commercial saying you're offering everybody $100 if they hear this commercial. And then he said, I'm not going to do that. I said, why? Because you're afraid people are going to hear it and call you, and you're going to have to give them $100. I said, of course, people are going to be calling and hearing. If you're offering somebody a gold brick, then of course. So it's a message issue. And so that's the only thing. So as far as I know, he's still on radio 2 years later and it's still working for him. And that there's a kind of black and white example of, you know, how it's all message to market.
yeah, and this is Craig Proctor 101. If
Mm.
we teach you how to make great offers. If your offer sucks, okay, it doesn't matter where you run that weak offer, it's just not going to work. And I have agents coming to every day who are starting off with me, and they're convinced, Tony, well, direct mail doesn't work because I've tried it, it doesn't work, and Facebook doesn't work, and Google doesn't work, and YouTube, nothing works for them. Well, whenever I hear that all these different media don't work, I know it's the offer. So we go to, okay, let's fix the offer. And in this case, radio, once we fix the offer, radio is something you've never stopped doing. In fact, you've expanded it. What other things are you doing to absolutely dominate the market? So you're on the radio, you've got a
Mhm.
jingle, people, everyone knows who you are. They hear you, but that's radio. What other things are you doing?
There's a couple of things. I mean, we've really kind of upped our Google presence. Really been working on that because we know that a lot of people by default will go to Google and they'll randomly search realtor in Kitchener and stuff like that. We want to appear near the top, not only because we Well, I mean, we Google most things, so we want to be where the eyeballs are for sure. So making the right offers on Google, making you're showing up when you're supposed to. If somebody types in guaranteed sale, you want to make sure, for example, that you do show up. These things are all absolutely critical. But I mean, going back to a more grassroots level, to be honest, we've never really drifted from our referrals and our past clients and referrals from past clients. We make over $1 million a year just from that, and the expense is relatively zero. Like
That's
it's
something we definitely have to show in Toronto. I think we showed it in April. So Tony, everybody, Tony pulled out this tracking of how he made over $1 million. It was just over $1 million just from his referral business. And I think there was a very tiny ad spend, maybe like on client parties or something like that. But everything else was referrals from past clients, people you know who'd never been past clients, a lot of referrals from agents on your team, people on your team.
Mhm.
But how many of you would like to learn how to make $1 million in passive income without actually having to spend any money? Okay, that's what Tony did. Now, the real opportunity, though, is people we don't know. So we want to optimize all the people you know and the people they know and the people they know who they know. So we want to do that for sure. And that's going to take a system. A lot of you are getting referrals, maybe most of your business, if you're listening to us right now, most of your business is referral based, but can we improve that referral system? Okay, we're going to talk about how can I get more referrals. A lot of referrals are accidental referrals. In other words, even an agent that would brag and say, well, 90% of my business, Tony, comes from referrals. When we specifically ask them, okay, well, what's your referral system? They look at us, like, what are you talking about? It just comes to me, right? So if that's you, if you're getting a decent amount of referral business or maybe no referral business at all, imagine if you had a systematic way of making this happen. So we take what you're doing and we improve it so you get more referrals.
Mhm.
But even that being said, if you really want to blow it out of the water, if you want to be Tony Joe Hall, you're going to get huge referrals, but you're going to focus on all the people in your marketplace that you don't personally know, that aren't being referred to you, right? There's a lot more people in your marketplace that don't know you than people that know you, like you, love you, and are going to refer business. That is the referral business really was the byproduct of you focusing on how do I make sure that everyone in Kitchener-Waterloo not only knows who I am, but they understand the very specific benefits that they're going to derive by working with me. So does everyone understand that's the difference between what Tony's done and what most agents, when they think of branded advertising, they think of, oh, I'm going to stick my head on a billboard. I'm going to have my name and the Remax balloon. That should be good enough, right? Or I'm going to say, if it's a couple, spouses selling houses, or if you're into golf, it's going to be a picture of you and your golf clubs. That is typical branded advertising. With Tony, attached to who he is this very specific and tangible benefit. So they not only know who he is, but they understand what he does. Okay, what he has that makes him different and better than the other agents. Direct mail is big for you. You're on television whenever you're the go-to person for the local television stations. Whenever mortgage rates are going up, mortgage rates are going down. Tony, the stock market crashed yesterday. We better get Tony on how's this going to affect real estate, right? So you're available for that, and you do a good job for them. That's why they keep inviting you back over and over again.
For sure. And sometimes they call you last minute. I mean, these news broadcasters, it's like if they need a story, they need it like yesterday kind of thing. So I mean, quite often I'm getting calls, while I'm driving, or TV is easy, you can prepare for that, but when it comes to radio, for example, they're like talk radio, they need a last minute interview about the rates going down or whatever. It's you got to be on the ball.
Yeah, absolutely. Make yourself available. I've heard from agents say, well, I got a call from the radio station, the TV station, but they called me last minute and I was on my way out to a listing. Change the listing appointment. Go
Yes.
do the radio interview. Go do the TV interview. When they call you, make yourself available. Okay, I want to offer a free report to everybody. I'm going to have Faith just share it here. It's about our topic here today and how to dominate your marketplace and how to be the go-to agent. You don't jump out of bed one day and have this happen. If Tony and I laid out all the things he's doing, and you may look at this and say, "Well, that's impossible for me. I don't have the budget." Well, neither did Tony at the beginning, right? If you guys want to know a step-by-step process, how do I go from where I am now to being the dominant agent? We're going to offer you this free report. It's called the Real Estate Market Domination Checklist. And it is a checklist. We want you to go through this and read this. This is sort of your recipe to greatness, how to go from where you are now. And it's based on my multi-million-dollar clients like Tony. Everyone's using the same system here. How much they've implemented it and how big they want to grow it is obviously up to the individual. But if you want to get this report on market domination, please drop your email address into the comments below. And if you have any questions for Tony and I, please also drop those comments in. And I promise you we'll get back to you at some point here. And Tony, I don't know if you wanted to offer your contact information. I don't even know if you're even recruiting agents right now. I think last time we talked, you said, I don't have to run any recruiting ads. I've got so many real estate agents in our area beating down my door, wanting to join up that you don't have to actually pursue it. You're being pursued. But if you want to give your contact info, how people can reach you, that'd be great.
For sure. It's Tony Johal Real Estate Team on Instagram. And one of the side benefits to branded marketing is you get agents calling you wanting to be a part of it too, which is very cool.
So let's say I was one of those agents. Maybe you don't even know who I am, but let's say I'm in Kitchener-Waterloo, and maybe I don't even know you, but I'm frustrated because whenever I'm up against the Tony Johal team, you kick my butt. I remember having that with an agent once that I recruited, and he said, "Craig, I really hated you. I didn't know you. I've actually met you, and you're a nice guy. But before I was on your team, I didn't know you, and I just heard, these things about you." And he goes, "I remember one day I went home and I was complaining to my wife about how hard real estate is, and it's the market." He says, "I was talking about how bad the market was and how terrible and tough and impossible it is to make a living in real estate." He says, "My wife said to me, 'Well, if it's so hard, then how can Craig Proctor do all of this?'" And he goes, "At that moment, I hated you, right?"
Completely demasculated.
Yeah. So anyway, here I am, he said, and if you can't beat him, join him. But you literally do everything for your agents, from generating the leads to the appointments. You've got an inside sales agent team, an outside sales agent team. Your wife, Heidi, runs the business with you. You guys are very nicely split up. It just worked out really well that she really is good and likes the things that you really don't care for. And you guys, there's not much overlap there, really. Right?
No, there's really not. I mean, we've got kind of clearly defined roles. Every now and then there is an issue, at which point she and I'll have a conversation, and but it keeps us connected. So.
Well, I think it's really, I can speak from myself. It's really helpful when I've got something going on, I'm not quite sure, to get Catherine's opinion. I'm like, "What do you think of this?" And she'll do the same thing. Like, "Here's the situation." It might be something she oversees or something I oversee, but I know you do that with Heidi all the time. It's like, "Okay, here's the situation." Just having somebody that knows the business so much and cares about you, having that type of second opinion on things is very, very helpful.
It's true. I do ask her for her opinion, her perspective on things. Then she gives it to me. Then I'm never happy.
Yeah. Well, I said to Catherine the other day, the key is to pretend you're not really good at something, and then she'll go do it, right? So
I like that.
That's the key. So some of I don't know how to do, but even if I know how to do it, it's like, well, I know, just kind of fumble through it. She go, "Oh, I'll just do it myself."
Yeah. That's funny. You screw up the first one, then you'll fix it.
Exactly. So we'll have to do a separate session. Maybe we'll get our wives on this one, and it'll be like, how we work together. It could be, because it is very unique, how we work together with our spouses, and the benefit of having this. I mean, imagine if my wife or your wife worked, somewhere else. They had a job, like all these great vacations and things you were doing. You'd have to say to Heidi, well, hey, do you think you can get this week off or that week off? We don't have to worry about that, right? And
For
you
sure.
do take a lot of vacations. So we should say this before we wrap it up.
Yeah.
List off in the last 12 months. Okay, everyone wants to know the reward of doing this. Number one, Tony loves what he's doing.
Yeah.
He's not cold calling. He's not door knocking. He's not chasing people. People are literally every day calling Tony Johal, and they're either saying one of two things. They're either saying, can Tony come and list my house, which is our favorite, or we'd like to speak to Tony about listing our house, right? Which is also very good. Now, there's so much business coming in. Tony can't even go out on all the listings or work with all the buyers. He tries, but he's got overflow. So he has presented a wonderful opportunity for other real estate agents in Kitchener-Waterloo to partner up with Tony Johal, and everyone on his team makes more money working with Tony than they would independently out on their own. And so this allows Tony to have freedom. It's a business, even though he's a real estate agent. He's not the broker of the company. He doesn't, despite what people in Kitchener-Waterloo may think, he doesn't own Remax, doesn't own the company. He just owns the market. He doesn't own the actual company. But this allows you freedom, because when you go away, things still happen.
For sure. For sure. I mean, last year was a big travel year for us. This year we've kind of cut back, not because of finances, it's because my kids are just getting irritated. But I mean,
no, first of all, I'd love to know your version of cutting back. What's that mean? We only go away every other month, or
well, I mean, it's we've spent a lot more time up north. And I think by the end of the year we would have went on 3, maybe 4 vacations if you include New York for a getaway, which was on my daughter's kind of list of things to do. But last year, let me see, started the year we went to Cuba in January, then later we went to Florida, then we did Dominican, then we did, I think, Dominican again, then we did Jamaica, because my wife and I both turned 40 and it was our 10-year anniversary. Then we did Bahamas at the end of the year. And then I went to Florida for your conference. I went to California for your conference. And then I was up in my cottage every weekend, up 2 hours away. And I spent a week up there in the summer, and I spent 2 weeks up there at Christmas and New Year.
How many of you watching think this is impressive? Okay, so what Tony Johal has just presented here is that he actually had more vacations in the last 12 months than most agents have transactions. Okay, he had more holidays than most agents transactions. But this is the lifestyle that is attainable for everybody. Okay, that's why we're doing the interview here. I don't want you to think that you can't do this. In fact, Tony's personality, his approach, is about being very open to the fact that, hey, here's who I want. Here's what I was doing at the beginning, struggling to make $100,000 a year, not going anywhere, working all the time, to having this great business that produces or enables Heidi and Tony and his family to have these amazing vacations, and they have this wonderful chalet. It's like a cottage, right, that they go to every single weekend, which, you can mentally escape from it all, go away there every weekend, and on top of that, travel around the world. So I think, if I was you, I would listen to what Tony has to say. I would order the report. If you want information on if you're in the Greater Toronto area, or you're anywhere, and you'd like to come to our event on September the 26th, you can email me, Craig@craigproctor.com. Okay. In fact, if you want to email me about anything, maybe it's feedback about our show today, what you liked, what you didn't like. I'm always open to feedback, because that's how we get better. But Tony, I want to thank you so much for doing this today. I so look forward to your presentation in Toronto on September the 26th. Any final thoughts before we wrap this up?
Come to Toronto. It's going to be fun. It's an open book. I'll share everything that I have. Good, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and it's there.
All right. Well, we're going to make sure that this interview goes on to our coaching private Facebook group, the Platinum private Facebook group. It's going to be on YouTube. It's going to be all over social media. Thousands of people will watch this. And I want to thank each one of you for watching this here today. Again, if you have any questions, you can either email me or type them in the comments below and we'll get back to you. But thank you, Tony, Joe Hall.
My pleasure.
Really appreciate you being here. And I want to thank everybody for watching another edition of the Craig Proctor Real Estate Show. Take care and have a great day.
See you guys.